Others are the darts of the plan. What's though they ain't made an art of the man? The new knowledge is power. My one per. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spend hour after hour, learning black power, destroying lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. I found the truth and I'm not letting go. Frederick Douglass and Booker T found power. Nat Turner found truth in his darkest hour. Mama Harriet set us free and stood for we. In these pages I found power in our history. UEP birthed the panther in me. In me, never let a fascist pig carry me, not me. Revolutionary thoughts, all I read. Normal for my soul, keep my spirit on high. Revolutionary thought is always on the rise. Yeah, it's always on the rise. Love. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spend hour after hour, learning black power, destroy lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us, our problems was them. Them being the ones who robbed and took us, kings and queens, nation builders. From stolen legacy to Anthony Browder, building institutions with black knowledge. Build black libraries for black scholars, building black minds, urban philosophy, urban black reads, every one place. Black owned bookstores, we support your space. To all black authors, we give much thanks. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroy lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Ooh. Knowledge is power, our power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge.
Peace and black power to everyone under the sound of my voice. Welcome to another Truth to Power Talk with your sister, Dr. Ma'a. Thank you for joining another powerful discussion. And tonight, I am going to have a powerful guest, and that's Lord Abba. I'm waiting for Lord Abba and some of the freedmen to get in the building, family. We got a nice broadcast lined up for you tonight, family. You see the title, U.S. votes no, right? They literally voted no. And it wasn't just the U.S. It was the U.S., Argentina, and Israel. They voted no against recognizing slavery as the gravest crime against humanity, family. And so we need to talk about that. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I wasn't going to go live tonight. I absolutely wasn't going to go live tonight. I have a lot of things on my plate. It's the end of the semester. Shout out to all of my university professors. You know how it is. It's the end of the semester. We're getting ready to give out all of our design projects, and we're trying to tie up the semester. And on top of that, we're doing research, and we're publishing, and we're writing grants and all kinds of stuff. So initially I said, I had a 3-hour meeting earlier today, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to go live, but I have to. You know, we have to talk about this, right? We have to unpack this. But before I do, family, I do want to highlight the UACI STEM Camp, which is a 100% virtual STEM camp, all right, which focuses on Black youth. The objective of this camp was to increase Black participation in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so this camp will start on June the 22nd. And we're going to go until July the 2nd. It's a 2-week camp. And like I said, your kids don't have to leave home. It's free. Literally, it's free. All you have to do is go to uacistemcamp.com to sign your child up. If your child is between 8 and 17, he or she can attend this camp free of charge. I'm taking 50. And when I say I'm saying we. Shout out to Baba Amin and his lovely queen, Mama and Koyo. Today she's celebrating her 50th birthday. So salute to Mama and Koyo. And Mama and Koyo, if you're listening, I wish you a happy, happy Earth Day, beloved. And I wish you many more. But we are going to be taking 50 students, okay? 50 students, all right? And right now, family, slots are filling up fast, okay? The U is no other Black centered, African centered STEM camp out here that's doing what we're doing. We're teaching our babies cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the fundamentals of programming. Okay. We're also teaching them that, and in addition to teaching them about our contributions to the advancement of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And this is free, family. This is free. So make sure that you head on over to uacistemcamp.com. Let me put the URL on the screen, uacistemcamp.com. Head on over there, learn more about the program and what we do. That's that Baltimore, what we do. All right. And so come and learn. And these are real pictures. I know a lot of people do the AI stuff like, no. Dr. Ma don't have to put AI pictures on her website because I actually do real work. So these are pictures of students in my program from various schools in Baltimore City working with the microbit, doing what we're doing. So this is real stuff that we're doing with Black children, okay? And so, I mean, even the backdrops that you're seeing, this is one of my instructors right here, Mr. Amon Anderson, who just graduated with his degree from Morgan State. So this is real stuff that you're looking at, okay? Real. Now, that ain't real. That pyramid. Now, I got pictures of the step pyramid, but that one isn't. But then you have a video, family, that highlights what we do with our students. You're looking at one of my students, Mr. Kendall Knox, working with the children. So you can come over here, check out this video. All right. You scroll down, you see the team, Baba Amin and myself and Mr. Sean Gales and Mr. Chaz Padilla and Mr. Nasir. Both of these two brothers on the end are engineers. They work in industry and they understand through my program, Conscious Ingenuity, they understood when they came through as undergraduate students that even after they graduated, that their responsibility was to our community, taking all of the knowledge and skills, bringing it back to our community and making sure that we utilize STEM as a means for our empowerment. So obviously Dr. Ma's formula works because these students have graduated, but they're still teaching in my program. There's actually several more of them still teaching in the program and helping our youth. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see parent testimonials. Parents absolutely love our program. You scroll down and you see who our camp sponsors are. Shout out to the CAP Center of Morgan State University. That's our cybersecurity research center. Salute to them. Salute to Seamless. That's our Morgan State University's artificial intelligence research lab. So shout out to them and shout out to Sister Vicky Dillard, who sponsors children regularly throughout the camp, throughout the year. So shout out to Sister Vicky Dillard, who is also a sponsor of the UACI STEM camp. So registration is open now, family. So just make sure that you come over here, scroll down, hit the button that says register today for the summer cycle. All right. Or you can click the button as soon as you go on the website. It's right at the top. You can click register now. Get your children enrolled. And as I stated, we're taking 50 children. We're sending out free equipment and anything else you need to participate in this camp. All right, family. So let's get to the why. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. So the UN convened, and let me know in the chat, family. I see the Maadian family is coming in. Peace and love to the Maadian family. But the UN, the United Nations, convened on March the 25th, I believe. I see Sister Juju's in the building. Shout out to Sister Juju. Shout out to the pseudo killers. I believe it was on March the 25th of this year. It was literally last week. And Ghana led a resolution. Shout out to Ghana. Some of you all are mad. And you know who those some people are. You are mad that Ghana put forth a resolution, family, to declare the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. All right. And if you look at some of these articles on the internet, a lot of them are removing the word gravest. I saw some of the journalists removing that word gravest. Even I was kind of shocked. I shouldn't have been shocked. Roland Martin, if you go back and you look at his YouTube channel, he removed gravest. But on the actual resolution, family, all right, That is what it is titled. It's titled The Declaration of the Trafficking of Enslaved Africans and Racialized Chattel Slavery. I'm sorry, racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the greatest crime against humanity. That is what it's actually called. And so a lot of people are removing that word, the gravest. But we've been saying it. African scholars, and when I say African, I'm talking about continental and diasporic Africans, have been saying that for a while, that the enslavement of African people was and is the gravest crime against humanity, especially if you're familiar with the history and what it and what occurred. All right. But there's some people who are upset. Man, Dr. Ma'at, Ghana shouldn't have been leading that. They can't speak for us. They were complicit in the slave trade. And I mean, it's crazy when you say Ghana was complicit in it. I mean, Ghana wasn't even Ghana at that particular time. But, that's what folks are saying. Ghana, Dr. Ma'at, they were complicit in the slave trade. You don't know that? And I'm sitting there looking at them. So Ghana is complicit in it. So they shouldn't be spearheading nothing. They were the ones selling it. Then they bring up the famous, the Dahomey. That's the go-to example. The Dahomey, Dr. Ma'at, the Dahomey kingdom. So they had no. You all did all that stuff. And then there's this rumor on the internet that Ghana's trying to steal Black Americans' reparations. You can't make this stuff up, family. You can't make this foolishness up. Okay. Ghana is trying to now steal Black Americans' reparations. These are the rumors going around. And so this says a couple of things to me. One, I don't think they read the resolution. Okay. I don't think, these folks read the resolution. And then I also feel it's kind of like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. First you complain and African nations don't do anything for us. They don't stand up for Black people. And then when an African nation does stand up, now you're telling that you got to make up your mind, family. You got to make up your mind. What do you want? I'm at a point, if you hate Africa, then just say you hate Africa. If you hate being African, being of African descent, because I ain't no African, you all think that when we say African, that we believe we're continental Africans. I don't know any Pan-Africanists, and there's some in the chat, who actually believe that those of us who've been in America for hundreds of years are continental Africans. I don't know any. Maybe you all know some Pan-Africans who move like that, but I don't move like that. We're clear that we are 400 and 500 years removed from that continent. We're clear on that. We're clear that here on this land that we call the Americas, we are super clear that we have created a unique culture. And I can define for you what that culture is. I'm clear on that. We've created a unique culture on this land. And we have a unique history on this land. We're clear. So when we say African, we're not saying continental African, because when we use that word African, it's all encompassing. We're saying the African world. So it doesn't matter whether you're on the continent, in the UK, in Europe, Australia, South Africa, the Caribbean, North America, Canada. When we say that, it's all inclusive of all African nations, all African ethnicities. That's what we're saying when we call ourselves African. We're clear that we're not continental Africans. So I don't know where you all are getting this foolishness from, that we think we continental Africans. I don't think. And then another thing you all say, which is getting to me too. Oh, Dr. Ma'at, y'all don't even want to admit that they was complicit. Y'all romanticize Africa. No, we don't. No, we don't. There's nobody, we ain't over here romanticizing no damn Africa. We're clear on the issues that are over in Africa, especially some of us who go back and forth to the continent. We're clear on those issues. Y'all don't want to speak up and indict those Africans who talk about Black Americans. Y'all don't. Yes, we do. We have those conversations. You just tuned into other platforms where instead of having the conversations and say, you want to bash. And like I said, if you hate Africa, just say that. We don't have to play the game. Just say that. And if you hate being African, just say that too. That's all. A lot of y'all, a lot of y'all want to be white. I mean, y'all think y'all white Americans. That's what a lot of y'all think. Y'all think y'all white people. Y'all want to be white people. You think you white and you want to be white. That's what's wrong with a lot of you. You think you think you white and you want to be white. So you've been so far removed, you don't even know who you are anymore. You out of your damn African mind at this damn point. Anyway, family. Anyway, family, let's get to the resolution. Let's get to the resolution, family. Let's get to the resolution. I'm going to put my glasses on. Once your girl hit 40, my eyes started decaying on me. My eyes started decaying, and I was fighting, family. I ain't going to lie. I was fighting. I said, let me, you don't want to buy the glasses, and then you got to get used to wearing the glasses. And shout out to Dr. Asar. Every time he see me with my glasses, he affirms me. He said, you look cute with your glasses. So shout out to Dr. Asar. All right, family. So I'm going to share my screen because some of you just, you keep talking about this resolution. You keep talking about this resolution, man, and you haven't read the damn resolution. And I'm not going to read all 7 pages for you. I'm not. But you look at it. This is the resolution, and I'll drop it in the chat so you can download it. As a matter of fact, Sister Juju, do me a favor, Queen. Could you look up the resolution and drop that link? It's a PDF online. It's a PDF online. You can grab it, Sister Juju, and put that link in the chat for folks so they can actually read the entire resolution. But if you look at it, United Nations General Assembly district, it says limited. Oh, look at this, 17th of March. So I guess it was drafted. Original in English. Okay, 80th session. So this was the 80th session. Agenda item 119, commemoration of the abolition of slavery in the transatlantic slave trade. And so then I saw people online, they ain't name us. They ain't name the United States. Look at all those names on there. Algeria and Angola and Barbados. They ain't name us. You got to scroll down to the bottom of the page where you see the asterisk, okay? In academia, we call those footnotes, okay? And so if you see the asterisk right there, it says any changes to the list of sponsors will be reflected in the official record of the meeting. So the countries that are listed here are countries that help to sponsor this, okay? So some of you all are just throwing out, you just saying stuff. They named Capo Verde, Cameroon, Central Africa, Chad, and they did all that, but they ain't name us. They taking our reparations. No, it's the sponsors. Okay. See, that's why it's important. You all talk about school. It's important to stay in school. Okay. Some of y'all talk about school and getting education. You should have stayed. You should have finished the 12th grade. All right. So the title of this is Declaration of the Trafficking of Enslaved Africans. Okay. Declaration. So they're declaring. So it's a declaration of the trafficking of enslaved Africans. Why wouldn't a country like Ghana not be able to speak to this when you had a lot of enslaved Africans who were taken from the damn Gold Coast, right? So they have every right to speak to this. So it says in racialized chattel enslavement of Africans. Wait a minute. They were very clear when they said racialized chattel enslavement of Africans. See, this is why people reading comprehension is very important. Racialized chattel enslavement. So you were enslaved based on the color of your skin, based on the fact that you were African. And what type of enslavement did our ancestors endure? Chattel slavery. It says as the gravest crime against humanity. It was very dehumanizing. So they had this international human trafficking network. I would even say human trafficking child network. Shout out to, I'm sitting up here thinking about this sister. She works in the School of Journalism, Dr. Stacy Patton. She works over at Morgan State. And she talked about how when she reviewed a lot of the records, they went over to Africa and got a lot of children. Don't think they came and got me. I'm 45. They didn't come get people like me. Okay. They ain't come get the 40 and 40, 30 and 40. They went and they got the young folks. They got a lot of young people. Okay. Even I'm sitting here thinking about Cudjoe Lewis, salute to Zora Neale Hurston in her book Barracoon. She interviewed Cudjoe Lewis. He said he was from the Akana. He got grabbed up when he was 19 years old. They came and got the young folks, the teenagers. Okay, they didn't come get old folks. Not that you're 30 and 40, you're old, but I'm just saying they got the young folks there. Okay, and so anyway, it's the gravest crime against humanity, man. Okay, very dehumanizing, and it was perpetual. It wasn't like, it wasn't indentured servitude. It wasn't what they did, with the Irish, right? And with the other Europeans. It wasn't that. You were enslaved, you were considered property, you had no rights. It was very dehumanizing, and it was perpetual. So that means you were enslaved, your children were enslaved, their children were enslaved, and their children's children. And they did all kinds of stuff to black people, chopped off genitals, chopped babies out of women's stomachs, hung people, lynched people, all kinds of stuff, chopped off your arms, it was treacherous. It was demonic. It was the gravest crime against humanity. So they say the General Assembly, recalling the aims, purposes, and principles of the Charter of the United Nations, recalling it, okay? It says reaffirming the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which proclaimed that no one shall be held in slavery or servitude, and that slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Reaffirming, hopefully you all know what reaffirming means, like re-strengthening, reaffirming also the principles of equality and non-discrimination in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and encouraging respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other religion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status, underscoring, so we're saying emphasizing, that the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights reaffirms the prohibition of slavery and the slave trade, and that both the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights reaffirm that recognition of the inherent dignity and of, let's keep going, family, and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. And the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, which states that all human beings are equal before the law and are entitled to equal protection of the law against any discrimination and against any incitement to discrimination. Okay, so then it goes here, and I'm not going to go through all of them. I do want to read a couple, though. Okay, I want to read a couple. So it says reaffirming the Durban Declaration, a program of action which acknowledged that slavery and the slave trade, including the transatlantic slave trade, were appalling tragedies in the history of humanity, not only because of their apparent barbarism, but also in terms of their magnitude, organized nature, and especially their negotiation of the essence of the victims, further acknowledging that slavery and the slave trade are crimes against humanity and should always have been so, especially the transatlantic slave trade, and welcoming the 25th anniversary in 2026 of the adoption of the Declaration and Program of Action. All right, so then it says underlining its resolution, okay, 60/237 of 23 December. So it was December the 23rd, 2013, by which it proclaimed the first international decade of the people of African descent and reiterated that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and have the potential to contribute constructively to the development and well-being of their societies, and that any doctrine of racial superiority is scientifically false. Well, we know that. We know that, family. We're past scientific racism, and we also do understand that race is a social construct. And as Dr. John Henry Clarke said, racial is a pseudoscience concept. It's still scientific, he said. All right. But racial superiority is scientifically false, morally condemnable, socially unjust, and dangerous, and must be rejected, together with theories that attempt to determine the existence of separate human races, and welcoming the proclamation of the period 2025 to 2034 as the second international decade of the people of African descent. All right. It says recalling the commitment set out in its declaration of future generations to eliminate all forms persistent, historical, and structural inequalities, including by acknowledging, addressing, and taking effective measures to remedy past tragedies and their consequences and eradicate all forms of discrimination. So it says recalling also is resolutions. I'm not going to read all these dates. Okay, the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. It says, which it designed on the 25th of March, 2020, 2007. See, so some of y'all so busy on the damn internet. Let me read the dates. Recalling also is resolutions. Let me read. Let's do the dates, because some of you are so busy on the internet and you don't read, so you didn't know that all this stuff has been going on for decades. You're clueless. So it says recalling also is resolutions 2142 of the 26th October 1966, in which it proclaimed the 21st of March as the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. All right, 61/19 of 28 November 2006, which it designated 25th of March 2007 as the International Day for the commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the abolition of the transatlantic slave trade, 62/122 of 17 December 2007, in which it designated 25 March as the International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery in the transatlantic slave trade, 75 out of 170 of 16 December 2020, in which it proclaimed 31 August as the International Day for the people of African descent. Y'all are saying no Pan-African work was being done. Pan-Africanism is dead. Ain't no Africans doing that. Anybody doing that? Ain't nobody doing nothing. All right, let's keep rocking out with these dates. The International Day. Notice it said international. Hopefully we know what international means. The International Day for people of African descent, 78/323 of 13 August 2024, in which it proclaimed 25 July as International Day of Women and Girls of African Descent, and recognized their significant contribution to the development of societies and the importance of ensuring their full, equal, and meaningful participation in all aspects of life. And 80/106 of 5th of December 2025, in which it proclaimed 14 December as International Day Against Colonialism and all its forms and manifestations, recognizing how little is known about the 500-year-long period of colonialism, the transatlantic slave trade, and its lasting consequences felt throughout the world, and condemning in the strongest terms the crimes committed during the colonial era, recognizing how little is known about the 400-year-long transatlantic slave trade and its lasting consequences felt throughout the world, and welcoming the importance of continuing education and awareness raising, and the increased attention that the General Assembly commemoration has brought to the issue, including the raising of its profile in many states. Okay, so they're saying a lot of people, they don't really know, okay, about, in some people, 400 years. Yeah, if you think about it, I mean, the Portuguese got into West Africa, we looking at, and they're talking about the transatlantic slave trade. They're not talking about the Trans-Sahara. So let's be clear, because some of y'all say, well, Dr. Meyer, we can go back to the Arabs. We absolutely can. But this document is about the transatlantic slave trade. And yes, it did go on for roughly about 400 years. Maybe a little bit longer than that. I would even argue that. Maybe a little longer, right? I would say 400 plus, because you figure the Portuguese got over there, 1415, 1419, okay, and started kidnapping, and then, and then it evolved, it grew. And so I would say 400 years plus. That's just my opinion. All right. Yeah, a little over. Yeah, no, 400 because it got abolished. What by the British? Tell me in is it 18? Was it 1808? Tell me in the chat. I think the British outlawed it, and the U.S. was trying to keep it going, and people started smuggling and all that. So yeah, I mean, I would argue roughly about 400, maybe plus. But it says right here, recalling the erection of the permanent memorial to honor the victims of slavery in the transatlantic slave trade, the Ark of Return at the United Nations headquarters. I bet you a lot of you all didn't even know it was an Ark of Return at the United. You probably didn't even know it. Recognizing the work of the United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization on the establishment of the routes of the enslaved people's program and the various United Nations human rights mechanisms, including the working group of experts on people of African descent and the permanent forum on people of African descent. See, a lot of you all who run around on the internet saying slavery didn't happen, I hope that you read this document. Because I mean, the United Nations, they were doing work on this. You know, they even look at this. They established something called the Routes of Enslaved People's Program. They've been studying this stuff. They know it happened. So you out there listening to Dane Calloway, whatever his name is, Dan Calloway, Dave Calloway, saying it never happened. You all, that's wild work right there. It says, taking note of the commemoration in 2024 of the 30th anniversary of the Routes of Enslaved People program in the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and the launch of its network of places of history and memory linked to enslavement and the slave trade, and the first dialogue for reparatory justice. It says also, taking note also of the initiatives taken by relevant organizations and bodies of the United Nations system and anti-racism human rights mechanisms, calling for effective remedies and reparatory justice. I'm saying reparatory, it might be reparatory, so forgive me. Justice for Africans and the people of African descent. Taking note further of the Organization of the African Unity. African Unity, what's that? What's that, Doc? They're not doing anything. The African Unity, Abjua, proclamation on reparations for African enslavement, colonization, and neo-colonialism of 1993, and the African Union Assembly. Wait a minute, they not practicing Pan-Africanism, Doc. They not practicing Pan-Africanism. The African Union Assembly decision 934 of 16th of February 2025 on the qualification of slavery, deportation, and colonization as crimes against humanity and genocide against the people of Africa, which collectively consider slavery and colonization as serious violations of human dignity and affirm the continental commitment. Hold up. The continental commitment to the recognition of these historical. Wait a minute. I got to read that again. It says, and affirm the continental commitment to the recognition of these historical injustices. Doc, they sold us. Ain't nobody think about us over here. They sold us. Nobody ever came and got us. They not thinking about us. To affirm the continental. See, this is what happens when you listen to internet personalities. This is what happens, y'all, when you listen to internet personalities and you don't do what? You don't think for yourselves. See, thinking is like a thing of the past. You know, it's like a thing of the past. I honestly feel, and I know Dr. Asar Winkler is listening, and Doc, maybe you can help me out with this because you're in the psychology field. I'm not. I think that people feel like because some thoughts pierce your brain, that's thinking, right? But what I've come to learn in my studies, Dr. Asar, is that thinking is a skill, right? It's actually a skill. It's something that you do intentional. You may have thoughts. We all have thoughts. Things run through your mind. You're laying in bed. Oh, I got to go to the store tomorrow. And you may say technically that's thinking. But in my discipline, Dr. Asar, we learned that thinking is a skill. It's something that has to be, it's something that's intentional, and it's something that you have to develop. And also in my field of studies, engineering, we train our engineers to not only think, but to think critically, right? And so that's a whole nother level. So that causes you to learn and develop and apply what we call higher order thinking skills. And I don't know, Dr. Saw, maybe you can break that down in the chat for me, but a lot of us don't think. We feel and we believe. That's what we do a lot. We feel and believe, and we gravitate to that which makes us feel good. So when you're online and you're listening to these internet personalities, you think, because they're saying something that makes you feel good, that they're telling you the truth and that they're saying some accurate stuff to you, and they're not. Okay, you have to learn how to think, how to apply thinking to what you're listening to. Okay, and then you all go and repeat stuff without even doing your due diligence. That's not thinking. That's not thinking at all. So anyway, it says, and affirm the continental commitment to the recognition of these historical injustices and the healing of its wounds through reparation, underlying the call of the African Union's Agenda 2063 for the restoration of Africa's place in history and the healing of its wounds, including those inflicted by slavery and colonialism, and recognizing the Caribbean community 10-point plan for reparatory justice. Taking note of the designation of the African Union of 2025 as the year of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. So, they try to steal our reparations. Fool, this stuff been going on. The whole world been talking about reparations. You just heard about it because your favorite YouTube personalities been talking about it. This been talking about it. Where Dr. Saul, get Jabari on here. Get Jabari on here, and let's talk about all the work that he was doing, how they were doing it in the 90s, Dr. Khalid Muhammad and all of them. You got Queen Mother Moore and all of them. The stuff that Dr. Ray Wimbush and them, the stuff that they were doing. You all think that people been talking about reparations all over the world. Where you all been? They trying to steal our reparations. You crazy. Taking note. Okay, so the Declaration acts as reparations in African heritage, as well as the Accra Declaration on reparations and racial healing and relevant initiatives by the African Union. We was doing it first. Everybody stealing from us. Y'all crazy as I don't know what. Recalling the large-scale trafficking of enslaved Africans marked a profound rupture in human history, whose consequences have extended across centuries and continents, and that the 5th century marked the critical beginning of the exceptional and dark history of capture, forced transportation. No, we always been here. We always been. Hold on, family. Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing real quick. Can I keep going, y'all? Can I keep reading? Let me know in the chat. Can I keep reading? Because I know I said I didn't want to read the whole thing, but we only have 3 more pages. Can I keep reading, y'all? I'm looking in the chat. Let me stop. Can I keep reading, y'all? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat if I can keep reading. Because I'm like, we getting through this. Sister Juju said, yeah, we getting through this. Thank you, Sister Juju. Anybody else? They say, yeah. Moses said yes. J11 said yes. Please keep reading. They say your commentary makes up for everything. All right, family, I'm gonna keep on reading. I know I say, I don't want to read the whole thing, but it's kind of like you have to, man. It's like you have to. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going, y'all. Let's keep it going. Where are we? Where did Dr. Ma'ai stop at? Okay, here it is. Recalling that the large-scale trafficking of enslaved Africans marked a profound rupture in human. Y'all, make sure y'all share this show. Just make sure y'all share this discussion, because I got some more heat. I got some more heat after this. I got some heat. I came to fight today, and anybody that know me, hold on. I'm gonna call my father after this. He'll tell you I love to fight. I love to fight. If my mother's watching, she'll tell you I like to fight too. But I'm older now, and it's the intellectual fights. So I love the intellectual fights. Physically, now I ain't fighting nothing. Physically, I ain't fighting nothing. But anyway, let's keep going, family. Let's keep going. So it says, recalling the large-scale trafficking of enslaved Africans marked a profound rupture in human history, whose consequences have extended across centuries, facts, and continents, facts, and that the 15th century marked the critical beginning of the exceptional and dark history of the capture. That's true. Hold on, let me get my book out. Let me get my books. The 15th century, so we're talking about the 1400s, family. Look at this. Portuguese in West Africa, 1415 to 1670. Now, if you know me, you know that this is my book. This is one of my go-tos when I'm talking about the transatlantic slave trade, kidnapping trade. Come on, y'all. This book right here. So when you say, it did start it. That's when the Portuguese, you all better get that Meltrek episode 3. You better go to meltrek365.com and get Meltrek episode 3, which breaks this whole thing down. It breaks this whole thing down for the babies. And adults have watched it and said they learned about the transatlantic slave trade and who the major players were. Okay? But yeah, it did. It said an exceptional and dark history of capture, forced transportation, and racialized chattel slavery. Notice they keep using the term racialized chattel enslavement. So you keep seeing those words, racialized chattel. So that describes the type of enslavement. It says of the people of Africa through the first known mass state-sponsored auction of captured Africans taken from Nor to Dar and the Bay of Argan. Dr. Mott probably butchered that. But this is what it says right here. They're giving you some history in this document. Okay? The first known state-sponsored auction of captured Africans taken from these 3 places. Recognizing that for 400 years, the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans forcibly captured, commodified, and transported millions of African men, women, and children, constituting the largest forced migration. No, we was already here, Doc. I'm an Indian, right? So the largest forced migration. See, it's only like that on the internet, family. The largest forced migration in history and one of the longest running systems of organized mass human exploitation in recorded history, with millions more dying during capture, detention, and trafficking across the oceans. These are facts being brought to United Nations. They're not bringing no pseudo history in front of the various countries around the world. They're not doing that. These are facts. We have the records. Acknowledging the diverse legal and moral traditions across the world would have affirmed the inherent dignity of all human beings, and recognizing in particular African jurisprudence, such as, there's a bunch of y'all, I butcher the African names, okay? So it's the Mandan Charter of 1235, which established through Articles 5 that everybody has a right to life and to the preservation of physical integrity, and established the sovereignty of life over property. Here it is. Recognizing that Africans and the people of African descent have continuously resisted. Oh no, there was no they just let it go. Everybody just bought everybody. They just went to Africa and picked up people, and they just bought they bought them, and just it was no, y'all crazy. It says recognizing that Africans and people of African descent have continuously resisted, contested, and litigated. Yeah, we went to court. We have the records. Litigated the crimes of slavery and the slave trade from their inception. So they're telling you from the very beginning, we resisted, contested, and litigated the crimes of slavery and the slave trade from the inception. So we've been fighting from the beginning. And I'm gonna pull up some work by Dr. Ife Williams. I brought that sister. She's over at Temple University. That sister has an entire map. She has an entire map, family, that shows you where a lot of the resistance took place. And when you look at a map, family, you see it all along the coast of Africa, all along the Caribbean, all along the coast of South Africa, along the coast of North America. We always resisted. So it says, including through the more than 6th century Africana abolitionist tradition, early acts of resistance and testimony, state diplomacy, diplomacy, armed struggles, and strategic use of courts and petitions to assert human rights, dignity, autonomy over their bodies, and territorial sovereignty. That's a fact. So it says, taking note of the progressive codification of the racialized chattel enslavement of Africans across the world, including the papal bulls. Oh, come on. Dr. Ma always talks about the papal bulls. Sister Juju, you better tell them in the chat that Dr. Mad always talked about those dumb diverses and Romanus, the Romanus Pontifex. I can bring that stuff up, family. I can bring that stuff up. Remind me, Sister Juju, to bring up the maps and to bring up the papal bulls, right, of the dumb diverses of 18 June 1452. See, they're teaching in this document, and the Romanus Pontifex of 8 January 1555, when authorized the reduction of African persons to perpetual slavery. The Portuguese, Pica da Indias, commercial standard of 1st July 1513, which legally calculated enslaved Africans as accumulation units, such as that African women and children and elderly were quantified as fractional parts of a prime male slave. The Spanish did it. Look at this. These are documents, family. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. These are some documents I never heard of. I never heard of this document from the Portuguese, this one right here. This their commercial standard. I'm not aware. Look at this. The Spanish had one too. Asiento de Negros. And that's my butchered Spanish, my Baltimore Spanish, formalized on 18th of August, 1518, which transformed the African person into a taxable commodity under a state license commercial monopoly. Look at this, the charter of the Dutch West Indian Company. Anybody that knows Dr. Maad, I've been talking about that too, of the 3rd of June, 1621, which applied Roman Dutch law to categorize Africans as res mobiles, movable furniture property. Look at this, the Barbados Slave Code of 14 May 1661, which formally classified Africans as chattel property under the English law. The French Code Noir of March 1685, which legally defined enslaved Africans as, I ain't going to try it, movable furniture property, stripped of all rights, and the Virginia statutory principle, right? The status follows the womb of December 1662, which for the time created the unprecedented biological inheritable status of property through the womb of enslaved African mothers. Family, this daggone paragraph is a study. This is making me want to go and grab all of these documents and just read through them myself. You get what I'm saying? But I love that they put it in one 7-page document for us to comb through. But family, we still got to do our due diligence and look further into this stuff. You know, get those minor details. It says, recalling the emergence of certain legal challenges and judicial developments in the 18th century, which questioned the legality and morality of the systems of chattel enslavement of Africans. Recalling also final act of Congress, okay, in Vienna, act number, that's 10, what's that, y'all? 10 and 5, that's 10 and 5, so that's 15, entitled, I'm terrible with Greek letters and Roman numbers. Dr. Mott is terrible with it, but I think that's 15. Entitled The Declaration of the Powers on the Abolition of the Slave Trade of the 8th of February, 1815, in which the plenipotentiary, butchered it, recognized that the slave trade as repugnant to the principles of humanity and universal morality, and in the name of their sovereigns, expressed their wish of putting an end to the scourge which had so long desolated Africa, degraded Europe, and afflicted humanity. Welcoming the centenarian in September 2026 of the Convention to Suppress the Slave Trade and Slavery Convention adopted by the League of Nations in 1926, and noting the definition of slavery under Article 1 as the status or condition of a person over whom any or all of the powers attaching to the right of ownership are exercised. Noting the adoption on the 7th of September 1956 of the Supplementary Convention on the Abolition of Slavery, the slave trade, and institutions and practices similar to slavery, which defined the slave trade as including all acts involved in the capture, acquisition, and disposal of a person with intent to reduce him to slavery, all acts involved in the acquisition of a slave with a viewing to selling or exchanging him, all acts of disposal by sale, of exchange of a person acquired with a view to being sold or exchanged, and in general, every act of trade or transport in the slaves by whatever means covenants or conveyance. So they're trying to, however they got them, right? Conveyance. So take a note that the African Charter on Human and People's Rights reaffirmed in Article 5 that every individual shall have the right to the respect of the dignity inherent in a human being and to the recognition of his legal status in all forms. Let's keep going, y'all. We almost there. Of exploitation, and degradation of man, particularly slavery, slave trade, torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading punishment and treatment shall be prohibited. Noting that states parties to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court have codified enslavement as a crime against humanity, reiterating that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans violated fundamental human rights and constituted a crime against humanity. Remember, Malcolm X talked about this, family. I don't know if you're hearing it. I don't know if you're feeling Dr. Ma'at right now, man. Malcolm X talked about this. He said he wanted to go to the UN and charge, tell me, Dr. Asar, in the chat. Tell me in the chat, y'all. Didn't he say he wanted to go to the UN and bring this issue forward? He said that this was a crime against humanity, and he wanted to go and charge the U.S. People were saying that's what contributed to his assassination. That's why they wanted to get him out of here. Tell me in the chat, y'all. It says reaffirming that crimes related to the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans are not subject to statutory limitations, just like murder. Just like murder. You murder somebody today, they can get you 5 years from now, 10 years from 20, 30, 40. There's no statutory limitations. And that's what they're saying, that any crime related to the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans, they're not subject to statutory limitations. It says, take a note of a fundamental principle reflected across African legal and moral traditions that a crime does not rot, and affirming that there can be no statutory limitations for crime against humanity, and that grave crimes generate continuing obligations until addressed through truth, justice, and reparation. Oh, I'm seeing a little bit of my eye in here. Truth, justice, and truth, justice, and righteousness, right? So they're saying truth, justice, and reparation. I might start saying that. That may be my dad going, what's up, Doc? What's up, man? Truth, justice, and reparation. You know what I mean? So reaffirming that under international law, including the principles of the Articles on Responsibility of States for International Wrongful Acts, states bear responsibility for internationally wrongful acts and have the obligation to cease the act of its continuing, and to offer appropriate assurances and guarantees of non-repetition. Wait a minute, I'm thinking about Dr. Sandy Darity right now, and his book, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. Hold on. Where is it? It's around here. That's what he talks about in his work, Dr. Sandy Darity. You know, he's saying, hold on, man. We got to make sure we get, this stuff doesn't repeat. We need a guarantee of non-repetition. It says, if the circumstances so require, and to make full reparation for the injury caused, which may take the form of restitution, compensation, and satisfaction, or either singly or in combination, acknowledging the importance of truth, remembrance, and education and historical justice as essential components for reconciliation, and sustainable peace. All right, let's keep rolling, y'all. We almost done. You can look at the cursor on the far right side. All right, where are we? I lost my spot. Guaranteed interpretation against peace. Okay, here we go. Recognizing that the inception of racialized chattel enslavement was historically unprecedented in its legal and structural design. No, Dr. Ma'at, they all Africans already was enslaving people. The Europeans just tapped into the markets that already existed. You need to study. You need to study. This is what's being discussed on an international platform in front of nations. They're coming with the facts. Nobody coming with that pseudo history that you all circulate and listen to on the internet. This is real stuff. It says recognizing that the inception of racialized chattel slavery was historically unprecedented in its legal and structural design. Oh, they already had it going on. You sound foolish. Being the first global regime to codify human beings and their descendants as inheritable, alienable, and perpetual property, to convert human reproduction into a mechanism of capital accumulation and to institutionalize racial hierarchy as a governing principle of international political and economic order. I need to put a damn fire sign on that paragraph. This is another paragraph right here for all of y'all. Man, you already had it doing in Africa. You sound foolish. Taking note of the inception of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement as world breaking, world redefining, which ushered in the racial capitalist system, transforming the fate of all people across the world through new racialized regime and labor and property. It transformed the world. They said it transformed the world. It broke the world. It said, look at this, and it redefined it and ushered in racial capitalist system. Recognizing the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as a crime whose moral, legal, social, economic logics, I thought it was going to say logistics, but logics continue to inform structural racism. No, racism is over. It continues to inform structural racism, racial inequalities, underdevelopment, marginalization, and social economic disparities, which disproportionately affect Africans and people of African descent in all parts of the world. Facts. Acknowledging that trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans between the 15th and the late 19th centuries constituted a systematic, widespread, and institutionalized regime of violence, exploitation, dehumanization, and racial subjugation involving states, private entities, institutions, and other beneficiaries across continents and oceans. Come on, y'all. We almost there. Acknowledging also the exceptional gendered nature of the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racial chattel enslavement, in which African women and girls were systematically subjected to sexual violence, forced reproduction, domestic servitude, and gender-specific forms of exploitation, and which rendered, y'all, I'm getting ready to cry, y'all. I'm getting emotional, y'all. I promise you, man. My mother used to always say, girl, you act like you were there. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting emotional. As soon as I started reading about this and what our ancestors went through, you know, it's absolutely heartbreaking, man. You know, just even to fathom that, you know, and I remember going to Ghana. I actually went to the dungeons, and I went to the one in Cape Coast. I also went to the one in Elmina. And when I was in the one in both of them, I'm thinking specifically about Cape Coast. When I went into the women's dungeon, I felt weepy. You know, it was a weepy feeling over me. I wept. Matter of fact, I didn't just feel it. I started crying. And then when I went into the men's dungeon where they held the men, I felt a spirit of anger, you know, and I'm telling you, y'all, you might say that Dr. Maya being pseudo right now. She's saying she felt the spirits. I felt it, fan. I felt some presence there. I can't explain it to you. I don't know if it was just a genetic memory. You understand? But I felt that. When I went to Elmina and I went into the female dungeon, I smelt those women. Oh, no, you don't, Dr. Mod. I smelt it. I smelt the stench. And so now just reading this and just thinking about what our ancestors went through, it's heartbreaking. And to hear some of you all today say things like this didn't happen, this happened. That's why it's a resolution being put forth to the United Nations. These are facts. It's not no pseudo history. This ain't no Dave or Dan, whatever his name is, Calloway crap. This ain't that, and I can name some other names. I'm just trying to be nice tonight. This ain't that pseudo history. This is serious, guys. What happened to our ancestors. It was serious. It was serious, And so anyway, let me keep going. They were systematically subjugated. I can't reread that. It says, which rendered them, talking about the women, uniquely vulnerable to multiple and aggravated forms of racial, sexual, and economic domination, while also acknowledging their central role in sustaining families, cultures, resistant movements, and abolitionist structures under conditions of extreme coercion. Thank you, Ghana. Thank you. Thank you for speaking up for the daggone African women who were right there. Black women were crucial. It says it was acknowledging their central role in sustaining families, cultures, resistant movements. You wouldn't have had no daggone Marcus Garvey, civil rights, Black Power move. You wouldn't have had those daggone movements without Black women. You wouldn't have had it. The Underground Railroad, you wouldn't have had it. Not without Black women, you wouldn't have. Resistant movements, abolitionist struggles under conditions of extreme coercion. It says noting with concern the application of statutory principles such as partis. I'm not going to try to do that. So this particular word, which systematically exploited the reproductive and maternal rights of African women and girls and subjected them to forced reproduction of the enslaved labor force. The Ankh talks about that a lot, those breeding farms. They had breeding farms, family, acknowledging that the magnitude of victims, geographic reach, duration, commodification, state and corporate participation in deliberate dehumanization of enslaved Africans, and racial chattel enslavement of Africans produced such enduring global consequences, including the large-scale destruction of African societies. Y'all thought they was over there chilling. Oh, the Africans benefited. Why is Ghana and them, why are they spearheading this? They benefited from slavery because they participated. Fool, you need to read this book right here. Read this book right here, family. How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. It devastated Africa. Talking about they benefited. They was the major players. No, the hell they weren't. You fool. Listening to these fools on the internet and not reading for yourself, not thinking for yourself, not studying for yourself. It devastated Africa. They underdeveloped Africa. They carved up Africa. The Africa that we know today, this is Ghana, this is Nigeria. They put those borders there. Are you all serious? And then after enslavement, we went through, you got enslavement, you got colonization, then you got neo-colonization. And you all running around here, man, they benefited. They was the major players. They was making all this money. Are you serious, y'all? Oh, I got something for you. I got some heat for you after this. I got some heat for you. Let's keep going. The magnitude of where was I, y'all? Enduring consequences included the large-scale destruction of African societies, the demographic re-engineering of continents. I was just saying that, and the entrenchment of racialized inequalities that continue to structure international relations, thereby warranting recognition of the slave trade and slavery as the gravest crime against humanity. Here we go, y'all. This is the end. Look at this. Here go the resolutions, y'all. It's 16 of them. You still with Dr. Mod? You all with Dr. Mod? Tell me in the chat. Tell me, we down to the resolutions now, and 16 of them. Are you still rocking with me? Are you all still rocking with me? I see you, Tim Jones. I see you, JG11. I see you all still rocking with me. Rabia, I see you. I see you, Sister Juju, still rocking with me. All right. I see my moderator in the building. You still rocking. Moses still rocking with me. I see you, Moses. Conscious Black said we are. Who else we got in the chat? Who else we got in the chat, y'all? I just want to make sure you still rocking with me. Dr. Asar, you still there, King? All right, just said we good to go. Let's finish this out, y'all. Let's finish this out. We're going to finish this out. We're going to finish this out because at least on this platform, you all can say, no, we read the damn resolution. We read the whole thing. So all the internet personalities and the FBA trolls, and I'm not, it's a difference between my FBA brothers and sisters and the ones that are trolls. I'm not talking about the trolls. I mean, I'm talking about the trolls. I'm not talking about my brothers and sisters. And yeah, I still say my brothers and sisters, even though y'all say some garbage out of your mouths. You know, even though y'all say some garbage stuff out of your mouths, and I know me and Dr. Saw, y'all get on us. Why y'all still call them your brothers and sisters and the way they acting and all that? Think about it, y'all, in families, right? You might have a brother or a sister that act a donkey, but that's still your brother or your sister. Your auntie or uncle might act a donkey. That's still your auntie or your uncle. You know what I mean? Your cousins, your cousins, they act a donkey. That's still, that's my cousin, man. He crazy than the bed bug, but that's still my cousin. You understand? So it's still my brothers and sisters. But I just want to comb through this resolution because I guarantee you on your favorite personalities, internet personalities ain't going through this document with you. All right. It says recognizing that the legacies of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade persist today in the form of structural racism, racial inequalities, underdevelopment, marginalization, and social economic disparities affecting Africans and people of African descent in all parts of the world. Family, share this bill. Because after this, we going all the way in on some of this misinformation. Share this bill, family, because we getting ready to do these resolutions. We going through it, y'all. Share this bill. Share it. Thumb up this video. Thumb it up. So number one, unequivocally condemns the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans, slavery and the transatlantic slave trade as the most inhumane and enduring injustice against humanity. So I just want to know where, we're going to go through these resolutions, and I just want you all to tell me at the end, where in this do you see that Ghana is trying to steal our reparations? So we could lay that to rest. So one, unequivocally condemns the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans, slavery, and the transatlantic slave trade as the most inhumane and enduring injustice against humanity. Two, declares the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity. Three, emphasizes that the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity by reason of the definitive break in the world history, scale, duration, systemic nature, brutality, and enduring consequences that continue to structure the lives of all people through racialized regimes of labor, property, and capital. Four, recognizing that the trafficking of Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans constitutes violation of just cogence. Reaffirms its collective recognition of the profound and lasting impacts of the abhorrent regimes of slavery and colonialism and the persistence of racial discrimination, neocolonialism on Africans and people of African descent, and how this continues to cause immense suffering, cultural disruption, economic exploitation, emotional trauma, and unending discrimination endured by Africans and people of African descent throughout history. Affirms the importance of addressing historical wrongs. So this is number 6. Affirms the importance of addressing historical wrongs affecting Africans and people of African descent in a manner that promotes justice, human rights, dignity, and healing, and emphasizes that claims for reparations represent a concrete step towards remedying historical wrongs against Africans and people of African descent. 7, we almost there, y'all. Notes that in various historical contexts, reparations and all forms of redress have been provided in respect of other grave crimes committed against particular groups. That's, hold on, they trying to steal it from Black Americans. They're saying in 7 that in various historical contexts, reparations and other forms of redress have been provided in respect of other grave crimes committed against particular groups. Would that just so happen to be Black Americans? Reflecting the principle under international law that international wrongful acts entail a duty of reparation, and notes with concern that no comprehensive reparatory or reparatory framework has yet been realized for the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans, despite its scale, duration, and endurance consequences. So when those fools online tell you that Ghana is trying to steal our reparations, show them resolution number 7 on this document. Read that to them and then ask the question. And if they can admit that daggone now doesn't really sound like it, because they're saying that, man, other groups of people have put forth reparations and it hasn't been realized, and and they're saying that this needs to happen, and then how are they stealing? How are you stealing? So when those fools say that crap, read them number 7. Okay. 8, it says calls for member states individually, collectively, to engage in inclusive good faith dialogue on reparatory justice, including a full and formal apology, measures of restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction, guarantees of non-repetition, and changes in laws, programs, and services to address racism and systemic discrimination. 9, calls for the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural properties, objects. So remember, they stole a lot. We saw it on Black Panther. They stole a lot. I actually went to the British Museum last July. Shout out to Dr. Tony Browder, Baba Tony Browder. They stole a lot. So they're saying we need our property back. Our monuments. You go over to France, you see Tekkens in Paris. You see Tekkens in London. They done stole Tekkens out of Egypt and put them on ships and sent them around the world, African mask and all kinds of stuff. They saying, give us our stuff back. That's number 9. Calls for the prompt and unhindered restitution of cultural properties, objects, art, monuments, museum pieces, artifacts, manuscripts, and documents, and national archives that are of the spiritual, historical, and cultural and other value to countries of origin without charge. So that means don't charge us to send our stuff back. Just send our stuff back. And urges the strengthening of international cooperation on reparations for any damage done, recognizing that this leads to promotion of national culture and the enjoyment of cultural rights by present and future generations. Number 10, we almost there, y'all. We said 16. Look at this. That's the last one. Okay. Encourages member states to support initiatives aimed at reparatory justice and sustainable development for affected peoples, including consideration of contributions to reparations related programs established by the relevant regional organizations. Oh my God. Sister Juju, Dr. Asar, y'all reading this with me? For the fools, they try to steal it from us. Read resolution 7 and 10. Read resolution 7 and 10. Number 11, requests the Secretary General in coordination with the United Nations systems, including the United Nations, Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, in the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, to strengthen coordination on remembrance, education, research, capacity building related to the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans and its legacy. Encourages member states to make voluntary contributions to support coordination efforts within the United Nations system on remembrance, education, research, and capacity building related to the trafficking of enslaved Africans, racialized chattel enslavement of Africans and its enduring legacy, and also encourages member states to cooperate with relevant initiatives of the African Union through capacity building, technical training, and support for cultural diplomacy projects on mutual interest. 13, invites the African Union, the Caribbean Community of Organization of American States, and other relevant regional and sub-regional organizations to collaborate with member states and United Nations entities in developing frameworks for dialogue, cooperation, and action for reparatory or reparatory justice and reconciliation. 14, encourages member states to promote comprehensive educational programs, memorialization initiatives, and scholarly research on slavery, the trafficking of enslaved Africans, and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans, and their consequences, including through curricula, museums, heritage sites, and public awareness campaigns. You know, Donald Trump wasn't going for that. He's trying to get rid of it. He's trying to get rid of all the stuff. All right. 15, requests the Secretary General to submit the General Assembly at its 82nd session a report on the actions taken by states in implementation of the present resolution, and including progress made in remembrance, education, and dialogue on reparatory justice or reparatory justice. 16, decides to include in the provisional decides to include in the provisional agenda of its 82nd session the item entitled Commemoration of the Abolition of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, to consider the report of Secretary General. Family. Now I'm gonna stop sharing. Family, tell me in the chat if you feel like after reading this, if you feel like this was a resolution by Ghana to steal our reparations. Tell me in the chat, y'all. Tell me in the chat after we just read this. I mean, we read every single line. Does this look like they're trying to steal reparations or they're trying to take over the reparations claim? It's bananas. To walk around and hear people say that, you could tell. That's why I say, man, I'm at a point, man. You know that old saying, don't argue with a fool, because from a distance you can't tell who's who. When people want to start talking about what Ghana did, have you read the resolution? Have you read the resolution? And then if you did read the resolution, because you got to remember, some people have very poor reading comprehension. So they're reading to take something and twist it, take it all out of context. Let me show you all something. In the daggone resolution, they did mention, and you guys know that I talk about this all the time. They did mention, hold on, y'all. They did mention, let me see. They mentioned the dumb diverses. Let me see. Religion. It may be in one of my classes, y'all. Let me look it up real quick. I'm going to grab this presentation. For you, because I do want to show you those dumb diverses. So it's in my presentations folder. Hold on, y'all. Give me 1 second. I'm telling you, give me 1 second, y'all. I want to pull up something for you real quick. This is all of my STEAM stuff. Hold on, y'all. I got so many presentations. Oh my goodness. I could show y'all what I'm looking at right now. Y'all gonna say, Jesus Christ, this woman is always teaching somewhere. That's the daggone problem. Always teaching. Y'all all right though? Y'all all right? Because I got some stuff. For you. Hold on. Because I beat the brakes off of this chick. She was a Hebrew Israelite. And I pulled up these slides and wore out when we were talking about the Bible. Let me see. Let me just look in here. Is it God? Let me just type in God. Now, let me type in Bible as a keyword. I mean, I could pull up this presentation. I don't think it's going to show the dungeons. I mean, the dungeons, because I wanted to show you all the dungeons too. Hold on. Where's the verses? I'm trying to look for it, y'all. Okay, here it is. So this is what they were talking about. This is what they were talking about. This is not the presentation I wanted. It's another presentation. But this is what they were talking about, family, in the document. All right, when they started mentioning those papal bulls, which were the bulls that they would generate and get the Pope to sign off on it. So on June the 18th, 1452, Pope Nicholas V had a papal bull called the Dum Diverses. Okay. So I'm reading right here. It says, according to the Historical Encyclopedia of World Slavery, on page 469, the bull conceded that the Portuguese, King Alfonso, the right to attack, conquer, and subjugate Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ. So remember, back then, if you ain't believe in Christ, you was enemy, right? If you weren't a believer, you was Muslim, you anything other than a believer. So enemies of Christ, wherever they were to be found. It also recognized title over any lands and possessions seized and allowed the Portuguese to render the inhabitants into perpetual slavery. So it says, although the geographical scope of the bull remained undefined, it is clear from the use of terms pagans and other enemies of Christ that the Pope intended to apply this, right, to apply it to the regions newly made known by the Portuguese voyages of exploration along the west coast of Africa. Family, you're looking at right here a facsimile, look at this, of the bull. You see the language. Dr. Maya can't read that language. I'm zooming in for you, family. This is the actual papal or papal bull, okay, that you are looking at. Okay, I actually went to the library and got it. All right, I went to the library and got it. Can't read it, but I do got it. Okay, I do have it. And so let me zoom back out for this. This was another papal bull that they mentioned in the document. Pope Nicholas V, his Romanus Pontifex, and this was signed on January the 8th, 1455. So it says, given the Dum Diverses had only authorized the Portuguese to enslave Africans through raids. Wait a minute, Doc. They never raided. They never raided Africa. They just walked into Africa and the Africans just gave their people away. They never raided. They never went into the interior of Africa. You poor little thing. You poor little ting-ting. Given the Dum Diverses had only authorized the Portuguese to enslave Africans through raids and conquests, a new sanction had to be sought to justify this regularized commerce with non-Christians. To this end, the Portuguese petitioned Nicholas for a second dispensation of the result. It says in the result was the bull Romanus Pontifex of January the 8th, 1455. After confirming the provision of the Dum Diverses and outlining the Portuguese discoveries along the African coast in the second bull, Nicholas noted enthusiastically that through trade and fighting, the Portuguese had captured many slaves who had been brought back to Portugal and baptized. This is a facsimile, family, of the document. Let me zoom in. This is a facsimile. Some people don't know what a facsimile is, Sister Juju. Some people don't know what that is, Sister Juju. Put that definition in the chat for those people. And then in the document, and I'm talking about the resolutions, in that document, Ghana also talked about the Ita Katera. Pope Alexander the Sixth, the Intercaterra, that was signed on May the 4th, 1493. So it says, let me enlarge it for myself, that the papal bull or papal bull Intercaterra established a demarcation line, okay, 100 leagues west of the Azores and Cape Verde Islands, and assigned Spanish the exclusive right to acquire territorial possessions and to trade in all lands west of that line. All others were forbidden to approach the lands west of the line without special license from the rulers of Spain. This effectively gave Spain a monopoly on the lands of the New World. That's what happened. It was through this Intercaterra. The bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted, and be everywhere increased and spread, that the health of the souls be cared for, and that the barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. No, we was already Christians. Where my Christian folks at? And it's no diss. It's no diss. Juju would tell you, Sister Juju would tell you, I'm a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. She saw my mother on the pulpit. Sister Juju, tell them in the chat how you came to Baltimore and you went to the church with me. So this is no diss. This is no shot at my brothers and sisters who are Christian. My family's Christian. I'm the only one that walked away at 19, but my family is Christian. All right. And I do when my mother's preaching. I'm right there. Matter of fact, she preached today. It's the 7 last woes, right? And it's Palm Sunday. I got my palms. Hey, Jay. I got my palms. Hey, Jalen. Can you grab my palms for me, please? Today was Palm Sunday. Friday is on the dining room table. Today was Palm Sunday, and Friday is Good Friday, Easter Sunday. So y'all, Dr. Miles, I'm not going to front to you all and lie about who I'll tell you exactly who I am. I tell you exactly who I am. But what I will tell you is, and I respect people regardless of your beliefs. If you believe, if Christianity makes you a better man and a better woman, good for you. If Allah or Islam makes you a better man or a better woman, good for you. Hold on. Thank you very much. See, I got my palms right here. Today was Palm Sunday. They blessed the palms and everything. These are my palms right here. Dr. Mine these are my palms right here. Today was Palm Sunday. Y'all see, I don't lie to y'all about who I am. I don't lie to you about who I am. All right. See, look at it. Sister Juju said Mama Ann. She said lover. All right. So if that, if Islam, Christianity, being a Hebrew Israelite, whatever, if it make you a better person, I'm all for it. But don't let's not act like we was always that. That's my whole point, guys. You all with me in the chat? What I'm not going to do is act like we was always Christian. And if you read this last bullet, it says right here, the bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered. See what I'm saying? It wasn't always that. And this is them coming over here to the Americas. But even the Portuguese said it. You get what I'm saying? They wanted to spread Christianity, right? And so let's not act like we was always that. That's my whole point, y'all. All right. That's my whole point. Let me bring up something. Yeah, let me bring this up to you guys. Let me show y'all this. This is a good resource for folks who want to say, oh, Dr. Ma'at, Dr. Ma'at, man, we didn't resist. You got folks, we didn't resist. All right, let me bring this up to you. Let me show you this. I said I would show you this map. Come on, y'all. Let's keep this up. Let's keep this live going. Let's keep this live going, y'all. Hold on. Make sure that you share this discussion. Share this discussion. Make sure you all check out blackslaverevolts.org. Okay, check out blackslaverevolts.org. This was created by a sister. Shout out to Dr. Ife Williams. And she studied over 500. She studied over 500 slave revolts, man. And this sister is a professor over at Temple University. And look at this, what she said about the maps. She says Africans and their descendants have resisted oppression from the initial encounters with Europeans and Arabs to the present moment. These digital humanities. Oh man, y'all. I was trying to let me go back to the map. It was trying to generate it for me, guys. Let me go back. Forgive me, y'all. Forgive me. So about the maps. Hold on. Daggone, she break it down, y'all. She breaks it down. Hold on. It actually like went to something else. I hit about the maps. But it says Black Slave Revolt maps start here, final. So she has a map. Look at this, y'all. Slave revolts. She has one of resistance. So you have map 1, map 2, resistance. So let's go. Let's go to this one right here. Let's explore the map. So you have revolts where they revolted. Then you got all the resistance. This sister's serious, y'all. And she lays out her methods, how she collected it. Look at this, y'all. She laid out how she collected it. How she went to different various sources. She names her sources. So she's not just making this up. She's not one of your internet personalities on the internet who doesn't have any type of research methodology and then, and don't understand data, how to collect data and analyze data. So look at this. On her map, she shows you where we revolted. And look at this. For best experience, she says, please zoom in to see more details for each marker. So if I just look in America, oops, let's scroll. Let me go over. Let me see how I can go over. Shoot, where's the bar to go over? Let me see. Yeah, let's go over, y'all. Dr. Mott, yeah, come on, let's go. And I'm going to go up. You can scroll. You can zoom in. Let me show you. She show you, look at this. This just the United States. And you can point and click. Look at this. Raid on Harper's Ferry, Virginia. I go over here. Look at this. Videos. Come on, y'all. See, this is the type of stuff our children, this is a tool for us, family. So nobody can tell us our history. Nobody can this is our history, family. You go right here. Let me zoom out a little bit. Let me go down. Look at this. All along the United States, all across, look at this. Look at this. All the way from the South going up the East Coast. She shows you that we resisted, family. Always has. And then you can look at the ledger and you could break it down. All of the different, look at this. If you want to look at before the 1700s, the 1800s. So I can just click off of this and say, all right, let me see what was going on. Let me get off this map. So before the 1700s, where was it? According to her map. Let me zoom out. According to her map. So before the 1700s, she shows you where the slave revolts were happening. All right. Now, if I want to look at just the 1700s, she shows you this. Look at this, especially in the United States, man. We always look at this, the Caribbean turning up, even on the coast of Africa. Hold on. Let's go to the 1800s. Everybody was turning up. Everybody was like, nah, man, this is it, man. Look at this. Along the coast of Africa, and look, East Africa, South Africa, Southeast Africa, all along the coast in South America. Look at this. The United States and the Caribbean, we always turning up. We was turning up. Period. Y'all, this is a resource. And then you can click on this stuff, y'all. Look, you can click on it. You can click on these little dots and it educates you on the actual, the actual slave revolt. Okay. I even brought this map to Brother Tariq's attention. I text him. I said, in your new film, I said, you should, but he already been over. He was already in DC and New York. And so by the time I reached out to him, he was all the way back in California. I said, you may want to have this sister, Dr. Ife, in your film to bring this information to the people. Her maps were actually housed in the Smithsonian African American Museum for History and Culture in DC. They had her map in there. They showed these maps. This sister's work is in the museum. All right. Then she has a resistance map. She has a resistance map. So look at this. Let's look at the legend. You have boycotts and strikes, protests, war, riots, revolts, sit-ins and marches. Look at this. So it's black resistance everywhere. And look at the United States. We always was over here fighting, and it's no disrespect to anybody else, but you've seen those markers for the daggone slave revolts and the daggone resistance. High resistance right here in the United States and the Caribbean. High resistance. And so, family, you could come over here. Look at this. Grab a little marker. Click on it. Boom. Look at this. They'll tell you, look at this. Different riots. Telling you about the different riots. You can click on it. So, Juju, put this in the chat for the family. Put this in the chat for the family. BlackSlaveRevoltsorg.com. BlackSlaveRevoltsorg.com. Put that in the chat, Sister Juju, for me. Put that in the daggone chat, Sister Juju. See, we always resisted. Always resisted, family. It was never a time when we didn't. It was never a time when we didn't. And so, people kill me, y'all didn't know, let me revisit this notion. Let me revisit this notion about Africa and how Africa had people don't think that it had a devastating effect. Oh, they was buying, they was making money, and it was this, it was that. I want to show you all something really quickly. It may be this PDF. Here it is. Is it? And I'm taking it from this book right here. This is the source. This is my source, y'all. This is my source. Slavery and African Ethnicities in the Americas by Dr. Gwendolyn Hall. Dr. Gwendolyn Hall. On this particular page, and let me scroll up, page 15, it says the Atlantic slave trade had a devastating impact on Africa. Escalating prices paid for millions and millions of people over the centuries transformed the methods of procuring and treating slaves and undermined productive but less profitable activities. It created a progressively increasing level of violence and disorganization in African societies. As early as 1526, King Alfonso of Congo, a close ally of the Portuguese and a devout Christian, which he was, complained, there are many traders in all corners of the country. They bring ruin to the country. Everyday people are enslaved and kidnapped. Even nobles, even members of the king's own family. King Alfonso tried to ban Portuguese traders and expel all whites except teachers and missionaries, but he failed. John K. Thornton's study of the early correspondence of West Central African rulers establishes that it was not slavery itself, but the European violation of African rules, limiting and controlling it, that motivated their complaints. Chaos, warfare, and empire building connected with the slave trade had an incalculable destructive, disruptive, and demoralizing effect. Okay? Warfare in Africa is difficult to disaggregate from the escalating African slave trade. Although it was often propelled by internal consideration, it became increasingly provoked, inspired, greased, and supported by the European demand for slaves in the Americas as the frontier for the capture, kidnapping, and the sale of Africans, supplying the Atlantic slave trade, expanding the move inland. So it says by 1650, the Gold Coast became a major market for European gunpowder, and they start talking about guns were incorporated into the military. All right, so let's talk about all that. Okay, so I just wanted you all to understand that it had a devastating effect on Africa. You can again read this book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. All right, Africa was underdeveloped by Europeans, man. Africa was absolutely underdeveloped by European people. Okay, by European people. And hold on, I think it was one more thing, one more document I wanted to read to you guys. Hold on. Okay. This is another one. And when I scanned it, guys, it looked a little blurry, but this was another document I scanned from this book. That's why I look crazy, because I tried to scan it as a PDF and save it. You guys keep saying, when you say Africans participated in slavery, and then historians like myself come back and say, hey, guys, Africa wasn't a melting pot. At that particular time period, it was no such concept of African, right? It was ethnicity, right? You were from your ethnic group. I had my ethnic group. You're from your ethnic group. We didn't see each other as the same. We weren't the same people. But when you all say stuff like Africans, so everybody, you act like everybody on the continent was buying and selling. Everybody, you named the homie, and then you act like everybody was moving like the homie, or everybody was moving like who's the other people? Who was Queen and Zinga folks? Who was Queen and Zinga folks? Y'all throw her in it. Then y'all say the Congo. Everybody was moving the same. No, everybody wasn't moving the same. Everybody wasn't moving the same. And it wasn't the whole of Africa that was complicit in the buying and selling of African people. But again, I'm just saying Africa, be African. I'm using that word, but back then it was no concept. Let's read this book right here. Let's read the book. It says, we know, and it's a little blurry for me, so let me take my time. It says, we now know for certain that Atlantic slave trade ships did not, is that Minder along several African coasts. Let me zoom in on this, y'all, because it's already blurry. Ooh, it looked like I made it more blurry. Okay. So it says, we now know for certain that that Atlantic slave trade ships did not, that's Minder, along several African coasts, collecting enslaved Africans and bringing them to many different places in the Americas. Look at this. Individual Atlantic slave trade ships collected Africans overwhelmingly from the same coast. Hold on, Sister Juju. Sister Juju, did you see that? Is that JG11? Did you see that? JG11, Moses, you all see that? Individual Atlantic slave trade ships collected Africans overwhelmingly from the same coast, usually from only one or two ports on each coast, and brought them largely to the same American port. Why? With a question mark. Because the longer enslaved Africans remained aboard slave ships, the more likely they would die before they could be sold. It is hard to believe that humanitarian concerns were a significant influence on decisions made in the Atlantic slave trade business, but spoilage of the cargo seriously compromised the profitability of the voyage. So if we count all the peoples of the huge African continent and the many languages they speak, we might conclude that Africans brought to the Americas were extremely diverse. If we limit ourselves to the African regions from which the slaves brought in significant numbers, this diversity is substantially reduced. If we total the African coastal origins of the slave trade voyages to particular regions in the Americas over several decades or centuries and collapse the span of time, we conceal the fact that Africans from the same regions and ethnicities arrived at various places in the Americas in waves. They came in waves. So it says, and I'm going to conclude, I'm wrapping it up. So it says, if we look at the changing ethnic composition of slaves exported from various African coasts over time, what we know about the patterns of the transshipment trade of Africans within the Americas and the distribution of new Africans after their final sale, we can further see evidence of clustering of ethnicities and speakers of mutually intelligible languages on African slave trade voyages, as well as after they arrived at their final destination. We can discern the clustering of Africans from the same regions and ethnicities and local districts on the estates. This trend is almost universal. So why did Dr. Ma'at read this to you? Individual Atlantic slave trade ships collected Africans overwhelmingly from the same coast. So much so, family, that it led to a clustering of Africans in certain places. It was a clustering. Go to Louisiana, go down there to New Orleans. They have something called Congo Square. It was a lot of people from Congo imported there. So they actually went to the same coast. Y'all act like the Europeans was just all over Africa and everybody was going like this. It didn't happen like that. They literally grabbed people from the same little areas off the coast and took them to different places. So when you say the Africa and you try to indict the whole continent, it makes zero sense. You're completely misrepresenting the transatlantic slave trade. And this is the last thing I'm gonna say before we close out, guys. If a lot of you all who think the way you think and you just hate Africa so much, I understand what you're dealing with. And peace be upon the soul of this brother right here. I want to lift up this African-centered psychologist right here. I want to lift him up. Peace and love. Peace be upon the soul of Dr. Kobe Cambon. Dr. Kobe Cambon, he pioneered African-centered. He's a pioneering African-centered psychologist who focused on the development of African or Black personality theory and the decolonialization of the psychology to restore African consciousness and cultural identity. So I want to lift up his definition right now. He has a book, family, and I think all of you should get it and read it. It's called Cultural Misorientation. It's called Cultural Misorientation. And he defines cultural misorientation as a cultural, let me zoom in a little bit, as a cultural-based psychological disorder that's prevalent in continental and diasporan Africans, acquired through the internalization of the European worldview, i.e. the European cultural reality. Some of you think white. You think very white. You think very white. You see the world through the eyes of your former oppressor. That's why you hate Africa so much. That's why you hate being of African descent so much. And I don't even want to say African. I really just want to say African. But as soon as I say the word African, you think I mean continental African, and I don't. And I explained that at the beginning of this broadcast. I absolutely don't. I'm clear on our culture and our unique culture and history here. So I'll just say of African descent. You hate Africa a lot. You hate Africa because you are culturally misorientated African. That's why you hate Africa. And how did you become this way? Because you have internalized the worldview and the culture of your former oppressors. That's why. That's why. That's why. And so when you are culturally misorientated, he says that you're operating with a weakened African self-consciousness. And he says that cultural misorientation occurs in different degrees. They may be minimal, moderate, or severe. And cultural misorientation Africans operate daily in what he calls a pseudo-normal psychological state. So you all think that it's normal. You think it's normal to hate Africa the way you do. You think white folks probably looking at you like you lost your damn mind. You hate the very person the very entity you came from, the geographical place, the people that you came from. So you live you operate in a daily, he says you operate daily in a pseudo-normal psychological state. You actually really think this is normal. You think this stuff, we hate the Africans. Y'all think that stuff is normal. No, it's sick. It's sick. And see, Dr. Naeem Akbar, before I get to Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Kobe Cambon, he says that cultural misorientation is a precursor to a lot of psychopathologies. So, that alien self-disorder and anti-self-disorder and self-destructive disorder and materialistic disorder, and all of that stuff. So he said that in his book, in Cultural Misorientation. He said when you become a culturally misorientated African, that's a precursor to a lot of psychopathologies. So I want to take an excerpt, and I'll close on this note, from Akbar Papers. Shout out to Dr. Naeem Akbar, Papers in African Psychology by Dr. Naeem Akbar. Tell me who this sounds like in the chat, guys. What group of people does this sound like? This is a psychopathology, the alien self disorder. It says the alien self disorder represents that group of individuals who behave contrary to their nature and their survival. They are a group whose predominant behavior patterns represent a rejection from their natural and cultural valid dispositions. They have learned to act in contradiction to their own life and well-being, and as a consequence, they are alienated from themselves. These are the growing numbers of African Americans in recent years that have been socialized in families with primarily materialistic goals. They see themselves as basically material beings and elevate their worth by the prevalence of material accoutrements, which they possess. These families are usually preoccupied with materialistic goals, social influence, and rational priorities to the exclusion of moral objectives. So it says these alien self persons have been socialized to deny critical social realities, particularly as they relate to issues of race and oppression. They're encouraged to ignore blatant inequalities of racism and to view their lives as if slavery, racism, oppression never existed. They have learned to pretend in ways inconsistent with their valid cultural identity and their survival. They are a group characterized by behaviors that represent a rejection of themselves and anyone who is socially or culturally identifiable as being like them. Hold up. They are a group characterized by behaviors that represent a rejection of themselves and anyone who is socially or culturally identifiable as being like them. These are individuals whose primary behavioral patterns contradict those things that would ensure their cultural well-being and the welfare of their social and cultural appropriate group. They have learned to pretend that there is no reality, no social difference between them and the descendants of their historical oppressors. They live in complete denial that there are forces of injustice increasing their collective survival. They're encouraged to always adopt the perspective of the dominant culture, even if it means condemnation of self. Let me read that line again. They are encouraged to always adopt the perspective of the dominant culture, even if it means condemnation of self. Hold on, y'all. Last definition, last psychopathology that I would like to go over. The anti-self disorder. The anti-self disorder. The anti-self disorder adds to the alien self disorder overt and covert hostility towards the group of one's origin and by implication towards oneself. The anti-self disorder not only identifies with the dominant oppressor group, but it also identifies with the projected hostility and negativism toward their group or origin, towards their group or origin. It says right here in terms of Frantz Fanon, 1968, they represent the true colonized mentality. They have so thoroughly identified with the colonizer or slave master that they desire to preserve the very social structure and values that accounts for their oppression. Fanon describes the colonized mind as one who seeks to restore the system of white supremacy that existed prior to the actual liberation of that people from their colonizer. This dangerous aspect of this group is that unlike the alien self disorder, they feel quite comfortable with their alien identification. Most often, they exemplify the very epitome of mental health according to the standards of the democratic sanity. They are usually the very model of stability in the context of the dominant group. They are held up as models for how the members of the oppressed group really should act. Dominant group members often compliment them by proclaiming, You are not like the others. You are not like the others. Hold on. Yeah. It says the danger from this group with the anti-self disorder is that they are unlikely to seek help, as is the case with the previous group. The alien self group will often seek assistance because of discomfort and stress that they experience from trying to fit in to a niche that was not made for them. The anti-self group receives such social support and reinforcement because of their rejection of their own people, that they experience little of the personal discomfort of the no man's land dwelling alien self person. The anti self person is likely to be coerced into treatment by the legitimized authorities, since they represent the real models of legitimate assimilated behavior from the perspective of the outer group. These persons generating considerable praises and adulation from the members of the oppressor group express the characteristic hostility of the dominant group towards their own kind. So you acting like white folks, banging on Africans and Caribbeans and all that. You sound like white people. You sound like your oppressors. So anyway, family, I appreciate y'all pulling up. Check out these books when you can. I was just reading from Akbar Papers in African Personality, Dr. Naeem Akbar. Make sure you check out How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney. Make sure that you check out Slavery and African Ethnicities in the Americas by Dr. Gwendolyn Hall. If you want to hear from the Portuguese themselves and you want to understand what they were doing and read a bunch of their letters, I've been promoting this book for years. Make sure you check out The Portuguese in West Africa, 1415, 1670 by Malin Nui. And that's all I have for y'all tonight, family. How did y'all like the show tonight, man? How did you all like the show tonight? How did you all like the discussion tonight? And I do see, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much, family. It says awesome show tonight. Thank you so much. Peace and love to you. Thank you so much, family. Thank you so much. Peace and love. I see JG. Peace and love. Thank you, Queen. The Queen says she loved it. Thank you, Queen. Y'all were in here tonight heavy, man. I appreciate you. JT11, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Bohemian Man. Is that, am I butchering it? It's Bohemian. Bohemian. Great information and insight to users. So thank you, man. Appreciate you. Peace and love. Peace and love to Tiff. Peace and love. She said, great show, Doc. Peace and love to you. Thank you, family. I just want to make sure that I didn't want to, I went deep, but I didn't want to go too deep. Do me a favor, y'all. Make sure before you get out of here, thumb up this video. Do me a favor, thumb it up, thumb it up, thumb it up. Peace to you, Conscious Black. Thank you, family. Black Sun, appreciate you. Black Sun 403, appreciate you, brother. The Queen Mother, Sherry Shabazz, is in the building. She said, good teaching. Thank you. Thank you, Warrior. Thank you, Queen Mother. Family, thumb it up and also share this show. Share it, family. Share it, share it, share it. I don't want to call it a show because it wasn't no showmanship. I was just going. I just had a lot I needed to get out of me. And I appreciate you all allowing to get it out of me. Share this discussion, though. Make sure that you should share this discussion, family, because there's a lot of misinformation on the internet, and we need to get this information up and out. So make sure that you share this discussion, thumb up the video, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I think I see some brothers and sisters on Instagram, NCB301. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you all. I appreciate you all. Family, make sure that you share this discussion. Let's get this information out to the people. Thank you so much, Brother Tim Jones. The Fire Symbols, Juju's, Tim Jones. Appreciate you, man. Sister Tiffany, Akeem. Is that Lord Alba? Lord Alba probably said, this woman, I seen you in your car. I was trying to wait for you. I know you told me the traffic was thick. Eric Jackson, peace to you, beloved. Peace to you. JG11 said, I really want to hear. I know, man. He was going to be here. And that brother is deep. That brother is deep, man. But he got caught up in some traffic, and I'll see if I can bring him up maybe next Sunday. So I'm gonna rap to him. That's a warrior right there, man. He got caught up in some traffic, and he said, Dr. Ma'at, he said, I will pull over. He did say that. He's like, I'll pull over. I'll do the interview from my car. And I'm like, I know some of my students are watching, and we just wanted to look, you know how pulling up slides and really building, and not like he in the car, he trying to get home, he on the side of the road. I'm like, nah, you know, so I'll reschedule with him. I'll definitely reschedule with him. But I think that's who this is. I think that's who that is. She said this was excellent. Thank you, Queen. Appreciate you, Queen. Blacknificent, blacktastic. Thank you so much, family. We got in the building. Kevin, Dr. Mad, I hope you show this to Dana. Oh, I don't know Dana, but I can holler at the judge. The Sub-Saharan American legend. Peace and love to you, family. Thank you, family. Thank you. It says was the Lion Wellness 76. Thank you, family. Peace and love to you, family. Peace and love to you, JG. Peace and love to you, JG11. Peace and love to y'all, man. Dark Artsman said it was phenomenal. Peace and love to you, man. Appreciate you. Lamar Allen, man, appreciate you all. I am not an expert. Appreciate you. Brother Cedric, appreciate you, warrior. He said the teacher raised from you. Ashe. Hold on. What you mean? What you mean, Cedric? Tell me that. The teacher raised from what you mean, Cedric? Tell me, so I won't be assuming. But peace and love. Thank you, man. Thank you. I am our expert. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you so much, family. And I'll be back here on Friday. I got Dr. Milana Karenga coming on Friday. We're going to be talking about what history should mean to Black people. We're going to be talking about that. I definitely want to I want to talk about Queen Mother more and some of the work that she did as far as reparation goes. I definitely want to do that. So check me out on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and next Sunday. Hopefully I can get something popping with Lord Abba then. All right, family. Thank you all for pulling up. Thank you all for pulling up, man. Have a beautiful, beautiful Blacktastic week. Peace and Black excellence.
Right beside the darts of the plan. We'll store that made in art of the man. The new knowledge of power. One more prayer. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroying lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. I found the truth and I'm not letting go. Frederick Douglass and Booker T found power. Nat Turner found truth in his darkest hour. Mama Harriet set us free and stood for we. In these pages I found power in our history. UEP birthed the panther in me. In me, never let a fascist pig carry me, not me. Revolutionary thoughts, all I read. Normal for my soul, keep my spirit on high. Revolutionary thought is always on the rise. Yeah, is always on the rise. Love. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroy lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us, our problems was them. Them being the ones who robbed and took us, kings and queens, nation builders. From stolen legacy to Anthony Browder, building institutions with black knowledge. Build black libraries for black scholars, building black minds, urban philosophy, urban black reads every one place. Black owned bookstores, we support your space. To all black authors, we give much thanks. Knowledge is power, and power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge. I read book after book, studying the power, spent hour after hour, learning black power, destroy lie after lie. For the power found self in these pages of conceptual power. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Our problem was never us. Ooh. Knowledge is power, our power is knowledge. Break the chains and experience the knowledge. Find power in power, and truth in knowledge. Once you know, no one can take your knowledge.